This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Today's episode of Doc and Jock is brought to you by Score, a new mobile app coming soon. Score is an interactive game that lets users win deals at bars and restaurants based on what's going on in live sporting events. Find new places to watch games and save money on your bill at the same time by taking advantage of Score's unique interactive specials that give you an additional stake in the action. A Score special can be anything a location wants it to be, from 10% off an item if a team scores a touchdown, to a free round of drinks if a quarterback throws for 400 yards. Any stat can be turned into a game. Pick the deals you want to win, watch the games you want to watch, and score deals in real time. The app will update when your team or player records a relevant stat. When the conditions of your deal are met, the coupons are sent directly to your device to show your server or bartender. It's that easy. Score is coming to the App Store and Google Play soon. For more information, check them out on the web at score-app.io and follow them on Twitter and Instagram at ScoreDeals. Score, watch games, score deals.
Is there a sports podcast in Detroit that people are talking about?
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Let's get this started. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Doc and Jock Podcast. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my cousin, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. What's up, cuz?
Fresh off a week where I think it's safe to say we are now dominant in Lambeau Field. 2 out of 3 years, going into Lambeau, the house of nightmares, and coming away with a big dub. What's up with that, bro?
Thank goodness Brett Hundley looks average.
He looks super average.
The Lions sit at 4-4. Thank goodness. I guess in that kind of a game, Monday Night Football, the Lions had a lot more to lose than they actually did gaining by beating a team like Green Bay without Aaron Rodgers. I mean, good. You roll up into Lambeau, you handle your business, and you defeat the Green Bay Packers. But for me, my takeaways are more along the lines of looking at how shitty Green Bay is. I mean, when you play the Detroit Lions, there's so much film on how to defeat them that you don't execute anything that would indicate on any level of success that you would have. No pass rush. You let Matthew Stafford pick you apart, and you roll out there with Brett Hundley. You're so awful in terms of offensive execution. You really got to point the fingers at what's going on at Green Bay, because if you're a quarterback guru, and I know you have a player with the caliber of an Aaron Rodgers, but when you develop a quarterback, what are you doing? There is no development of a guy. Brett Hundley, I know people will say it's not all on him. Yes, you can definitely see on the football field that Green Bay's defense is horrible. But all around, in terms of what's going on at Green Bay, you can't put all your eggs in one basket. And I hope that, obviously we don't want Matthew Stafford to go down. But if he were to, I hope that Jake Rudock looks a lot better than what Hundley looked like.
Yeah, and Brett Hundley was a quarterback that I wanted back in 2015. I think I wanted to take him in the fourth round. I thought he was going to develop and be something. I thought given some time, given the right coaching, he could sit there and he could become a really good quarterback in this league. Apparently, I was wrong. However, I think the best thing you could take away from Green Bay is how efficient their field goal kicking unit is. To be able to sit there and roll out and get a field goal off in 5 seconds, hey, bravo, I applaud you. But yes, you're absolutely right. Their defense, porous. Their offense couldn't even get going. I mean, realistically, they had the first 15 plays where they came out and they were scripted. They looked good. They looked efficient. But Detroit's defense shut them down. And then after that, there was nothing going on until the fourth quarter, where Brett Hundley was able to manufacture that 2-minute drill, get them down there and roll into the end zone, and then a penalty set them up at 1st and goal with 0 time left on the clock, and they were able to punch in a touchdown. I mean, Detroit sat there, went into Green Bay, and took care of business. And you're absolutely right when you said Detroit had more to lose in this game than they did to win. If they would have lost this game, you could have put a fork in them. Their season would have been done. Because there's no reason you should have lost this game. None whatsoever. Now you sit there, you look at the way the schedule kind of sets up. You got 3 games that you basically have to win. You got to win these next 2. There's no reason you should lose to the Browns, and there's no reason you should lose to the Bears. The Bears are in a real similar situation to what Green Bay's in. You sit there, you got a quarterback who really has no idea what he's doing. He's like a baby deer trying to learn to walk for the very first time. And you've got a defense that you should be able to pick apart. And then that sets up a perfect matchup for you against Minnesota, and you need to take care of business because right now they lead the NFC North.
And looking at the Lions, a lot of fans are super excited because of what you said and what people are looking at in terms of that schedule. It sets up for the Lions in order to maybe have success and maybe get back into the picture of winning the division, hosting a home playoff game. And many feel like at this point in time in Matthew Stafford's career, Jim Caldwell's career, they need that division title. They need that home playoff game. But as a result of watching...
We deserve it. I was sitting there thinking about it this morning when I was at work, and I was like, Jesus Christ, man. Detroit fans have no idea what it's like to have a winning football team. They don't know how to win. Like, you have no clue. I've seen the same guy wearing the same Lions pullover for a week now because he's so juiced up on this win. Like, it's unbelievable how much Lion fans love their team and how much they want a winner. That they have no clue what to do when this team actually performs for them. And that being said, they're 4-4 right now. They should have a better record. They should be in control of their destiny, and they should be rocking this division. But they're not.
But I want to tell everybody to pump the brakes because in watching that game versus Green Bay, a lot of things kind of came to light. And people are smart in town. They recognize, okay, fine, in order to win football games, the Lions damn near have to throw 50 times because Amir Abdullah is not sufficient. He's not the guy that's going to be counted upon to do some things in that running game. He's just not.
The running game is awful.
So now people are looking at it and saying, okay, we know that this is a passing team. It's a one-dimensional team, but they're trying on so many different ways and levels to establish that run game. Running the ball on first down, sometimes even taking the chance on running it on first and second down. People are kind of noticing, okay, this is a one-dimensional football team. While in the regular season versus garbage defenses like Green Bay, you can get victories. You know, you can play a game versus the Cleveland Browns, and you can have success with your wide receivers and Matthew Stafford, and you can win games. But can you name for me, really, in the last 15 years, a team that was basically one-dimensional, that once they got to the postseason, had a deep run? You need some semblance of a run game, and so for the Lions and how I'm assessing them currently, a lot of short-term progress, but now a lot of long-term issues when you ask the question, is this a team that if they got to the postseason, could they have some success? I would say no, because you get a 14-10 lead late in the game and you want to give the ball 3 times to Amir Abdullah, it's going to be second down and 14, third down and 17. You got to kick the ball back to the opponent, and there's a strong chance when you lean on your defense that you're opening yourself up for huge failure. This lack of a run game, this lack of whatever you want to describe it as the problem, the scheme, Amir Abdullah, whenever Theo Riddick's in the game, you kind of see a little bit more offensive excitement. When Amir Abdullah's in the game, I don't even know if the scheme is proper. You see him running into his own lineman. It looks horrible. You see negative yards. I mean, you start the game, obviously you want to establish the run. You start the game, negative yardage the first couple plays. I'm sorry. I don't see why everybody likes Amir Abdullah. I'm very concerned. I just think that you got to establish that Theo Riddick package. I mean, look, late in the game, things were kind of slowing down. The momentum kind of had turned a little bit when Green Bay was making big plays. What do you do the next drive? Boom. Matthew Stafford gives the ball on a beautifully designed screenplay to Theo Riddick. Boom, up the field, 65 yards. Very concerned regarding Amir Abdullah. When you look at and you ask the question, can this team win multiple playoff games with that running game? I would say one and done.
Absolutely not. They can't. They cannot win games with it. And even worse than what you said about Amir Abdullah taking negative yards for first down, second down, possibly even third down, is his inability to hold on to the football at key moments.
Come on.
The guy fumbles way too much. I mean, you get down near the...
bad.
It is, Adam. It's horrible. You get down near the goal line, and this guy's coughing the ball up. And it's bad enough that your offense struggles so much when you're at first and goal, second and goal, third and goal, all from the one. How can you not punch the ball in from the 1 yard line? Generally, you sneeze and a hiccup, you're falling into the end zone. This team can't get the ball across the goal line. And you've got a guy who's your running back, who you invested a high draft pick on, a guy who you're supposed to be tailoring your offense to. and helping him to maximize his potential and his abilities. And this guy comes in and he drops the ball, not once, but twice. In this game alone, he fumbles way too much. You can't count on him. I mean, like you said, Theo Riddick is probably your best back at this point. Theo Riddick's probably your best back. And we've been screaming that pretty much all season long. You can't count on Amir Abdullah. I'm not sure what Dwayne Washington gives you. They don't utilize Zach Zenner for whatever reason. They're now putting Agnew in the backfields, and I'm okay with that. I like that. I like this nice little wrinkle. You're trying something new. It shows some creativity on Jim Bob Cooter's part, which I think is good, especially for this run game. I mean, this is an offensive coordinator who had no idea how to run a run game, and he's learning on the fly. So him inserting Agnew into that, I'm cool with it. I think it's great. I think it shows that his ability to want to learn and his ability to sit there and try to create something better. But at the same point, you don't have the pieces right now. Abdullah's not the guy. I think it's evident. It's painfully evident. Theo Riddick's your best back. That's a problem. That's an issue. I mean, the guy's a pass-catching running back. He's supposed to be your third down option when you need to pick up 3 or 4 yards, and you sit there and you do a bubble screen. He's that guy. You don't have any running backs. I mean, at this point, if I was to bring up Kareem Hunt to you and say, geez, old Pete's, man, could you imagine investing a second-round pick in that guy instead of Tease Tabor, who can't see the field? Bob Quinn's draft would look dramatically better, and this team, I think, would look better. It's so frustrating because this team has an offensive line somewhat. I think they now have the pieces with Greg Robinson being out. I think they now have the pieces where you can get some good production from that offensive line. I mean, they kept Matt Stafford clean during that game in Green Bay, and that says a lot about your offensive line where your quarterback doesn't get hit. And now you just need to sit there and get a running back who can run through the tackles and put some points on the board, and you don't have that. It's the one piece you're missing. I mean, even Marvin Jones figured out how to catch footballs. Even he did. And this is a guy who a week ago was getting hit in the face with the ball.
So at this point in time, the Lions sit at 4-4. That's where I had them after 8 games. Are you satisfied, unsatisfied, or even angry at where the Lions sit? Because you could argue this team could be 6-2.
Should be 6-2. I'm upset because, again, it's what it reminds me of. It reminds me of all the other Lions teams that we've had to watch in the past. They should be this. They should be that. They should have been doing this. We could be 6-2. We could be controlling the division. But it's always this play, that play, or something else always comes up and bites them in the butt. And you're right. I think we won the Atlanta game. The record says we lost it, so we got to go with that. This team should have... This team, I don't know, man. They're frustrating. They are ever so frustrating. And it just... You live it every single year of your life.
You want to know why you're frustrated? The Doc and Jock. No, the Doc and Jock potential meter with this team is there. There's something there. There's a framework of a good football team in that organization, but there's holes. And you could either blame the offensive line, the scheme, the running game, but when you have a hole that big, you got a great defense. You got Glover Quinn who's smashing people. You got teams disrespecting the Lions, going for it on 4th down. You got Glover Quinn. You got Diggs emerging. You got the semblance of a defensive line.
That's what worries me about this team is it's not every single season where you get a team where you have a defense that is this talented and is this good at forcing turnovers, and you have an offense that has the potential to sit there and put points on the board. You have a quarterback who knows what he's doing in his prime. You've got a reassembled offensive line that looks like it's talented. You've got wide receivers, possibly some of the best in the league, because Golden Tate's a savage. Once you get him the ball, he just picks up yards. And Marvin Jones, like I said, figured out how to catch a football. Like you said, you've got pieces, and you've got special teams. You've got a guy who can sit there and take the ball to the house every time he gets it on special teams. It's not very often you get this combination, and yet I don't feel like it's that good of a team.
Ken Taylor Decker, if he returns versus Cleveland or in the next 3-game stretch, one guy coming back, does this solve the riddle of the horrid running game? One guy coming back, Taylor Decker?
I don't know if it solves the running game. I think it makes that offensive line that much better. Honestly,
because don't you think the Lions are sitting here going, well, we're just going to wait a couple more weeks. Taylor Decker's going to come back?
I think it's on the running backs at this point. I don't even think it's on the offensive line. Look, sometimes that offensive line gets pushed around. I think we both can admit that. And I don't think neither one of us are dummies enough to believe that, hey, we've got a great offensive line. It's outstanding. right? No, we both are very sure of what we've got. We've got something with potential. It looks like it's going to be good. Yeah, losing Taylor Decker hurt, especially the first half of the season when you had to roll out Greg Robinson. He's not very good at his job. That's why he got traded. All right, so you insert Taylor Decker, I think immediately that offensive line looks better. So what I think is the protection for Matt Stafford gets better. I think now you can run the ball to the left side, because do you not realize that every time they run the ball or they've got to pick up yards, they always go to the right side? They always go to TJ Lang and Ricky Wagner's side. It's because those are your two best linemen right now. I think with inserting Taylor Decker, you now get some balance on that offensive line. And yeah, maybe you can run it to the left a little bit. But that being said, I don't see anything from these running backs. I don't think there's anything special from these guys.
Free advice from Doc and Jock. Whatever you have in the playbook that starts with the word pistol formation, just erase it. Just erase it. Fucking decide, okay, this is garbage. We can't run from it. Every play designed from there looks shitty and pisses everybody off. Just erase the pistol formation from your mindset and go forward and try and do different things. But people are talking about as well how important that victory was, but how do you rank it? Because of the fact Aaron Rodgers wasn't involved in that game. Do you care that Aaron Rodgers wasn't there? I mean, you basically beat a minor league football team the way it looked on the football field. But do you think if Aaron Rodgers was in that contest, do the Lions come away with the victory at Lambeau Field?
I'm going to go back to one play. Do you remember when Jordy Nelson was streaking down the field in the third quarter, and it looked like him and Darius Slay kind of got caught up, and the referees made no call. They did not throw a flag. I remember sitting there and I'm like, wow, it's going to be pass interference. I said it out loud, and my wife was sitting there screaming because she has Jordy Nelson in fantasy, and she's like, that's pass interference, that's pass interference. And I'm like, I see the replay, and I'm like, well, I was like, it could go either way. You know what I'm saying? It looked like
Rodgers gets the flag.
That's what I'm saying. So if Rodgers is playing, that's a flag all day. Brett Hundley doesn't carry that cachet nor that respect, so he's not getting that call. If Rodgers is in that game, that's a flag all day long, and that right there could change the total momentum and the way this game ends up playing out.
Yeah.
So I think if Aaron Rodgers is in, I think it's a dramatically different game.
And that's what people want to see. The fans want to see the Lions perform versus the best. Now, it's great to take the victory versus Green Bay. It's good to be 4-4. Everybody will take it. But at the same time, if you had known that Aaron Rodgers was going to be there and you got the victory, I think it would be much more sweet. But we have to also look at the positives. The connection between Matthew Stafford and Marvin Jones is quite obvious. He's got a strong connection. They kind of know now how to basically be that tandem that you need to be successful in the National Football League. It's nice to see Marvin Jones step up. It's nice to see Golden Tate actually go out there and continue to perform without fumbling the football, minus the mistakes. So that's a good thing. Eric Ebron really didn't hurt the team, so that's a plus.
He actually played pretty well. And we crucify the guy regularly. So let's just tell it how it is. He played really well that game. He looked decent. He didn't screw anything up. He made a couple big plays. You're right. He didn't hurt the team this week.
He didn't hurt the team. The wide receivers played awesome. And I mean, when you are a one-dimensional football team, I know it goes to the porous and the horrible Green Bay defense, but hey, those wide receivers were able to get open, and Matthew Stafford found them. And that's the formula. If you can keep your quarterback clean, if he's able to pick apart a defense, Matthew Stafford can do the job. The question is, can he do that consistently, week in, week out versus quality opponents? Because all you have to say is, why didn't you do that versus Pittsburgh? I mean, Pittsburgh is a team that's quality. That's an emerging team always year in, year out. And they bring some things to the table. And in that contest, you weren't able to score in the red zone. But versus a garbage defense, okay, you can get in the end zone. You can get open. Why can't you do that versus Pittsburgh? And so that's why fans get angry. That's why podcasters and every single, talk show in town will say, why not more? Why not versus the real teams? Because basically, Michigan fans got to be upset because Michigan fans watch a football team that can always beat the crumb bums, but when they go up against the Ohio States or the big dogs, they don't look that way.
I like how you get your shots in. You can save that for the next segment, all right?
I will.
If I was to tell you that Detroit's main receiving core would go 23 of 30 and score 2 touchdowns and essentially average almost 14 yards a reception, you'd have took that all day.
All day.
That receiving core came through with great colors during this game. They played outstanding, played out of their mind. And you're absolutely right. The connection between Matt Stafford and Marvin Jones, it's there. It's absolutely there. It's all on Marvin, though, to catch the football. If he's catching the football and bringing it in, Stafford's going to target him all the time. And Golden Tate, the guy's playing out of his mind right now. He's bouncing all over the place. It seems like every time he gets the ball, he has the potential to break a play, to sit there and scamper down the field and score you a touchdown or put you in a spot to do something good. And look, I already said what I said about Eric Ebron. I was impressed this game. I normally crush this guy. I haven't liked that pick since the moment they took it. I almost broke a laptop because I was watching the draft live in school when they sat there and drafted him. I almost got kicked out of my class. I was so pissed off. So I've not liked Eric Ebron since day one. He played a really good game. You got to give it to the guy.
And you also have to give credit to that offense because 0 punts. Sam Martin did not even have to be part of the football game. You can't.
I think I got a free trip to Green Bay.
No doubt about it. I mean, the first time since the 70s that the Lions have played a football game with 0 punts. Talk about efficiency. And it was nice to see, for once, an opposing fan base with their heads all confused, befuddled. They looked like they were, very disappointed and upset with their football team, and it was nice to see.
I'm glad you bring that up because watching that game on television, that crowd was out of it from the get, dude. From the get, they were quiet. They didn't sit there and start to roar until sometime in the fourth quarter when they were able to sit there and trip over their own feet and fall into the end zone. And then it was one of those almost like a Bronx-type cheer, like, hooray, you guys did something. That was the quietest I've ever heard Lambeau. That was outstanding. I need this more. I need this a lot more.
Okay, let's forecast. Next 3 games. What do the Lions bring to the table next 3 weeks? You got them going 3-0?
I got them going 3-0, and let me tell you why. All right, so they're going to take on the Browns. There's no reason you should ever lose to the Browns. The Browns are not a good team right now. They've got a rookie quarterback who's trying to figure things out. That offensive line struggles. Their run game. Look, Isaiah Crowell, as good of a year as he had last year, he's been missing this entire season. So there's no reason that the Detroit Lions offense and their defense should take full advantage of Cleveland. Now, you sit there and you move on to the Bears. Bears have a little bit better of a defense than Green Bay. But that being said, again, you've got Mitch Trubisky under center. You got a rookie quarterback who doesn't throw the ball a lot and is prone to make mistakes because he's a rookie. So if that defense can sit there and put pressure on him, I like our secondary sitting there forcing the turnovers. I think Detroit's special teams can sit there and take advantage as well. I think Detroit wins against the Bears. And then it sets up the game against the Vikings. This is what it all comes down to, because right now the Vikings have a 2-game lead on you, or a 1.5 lead on you. So you need to sit there. You need to win this game. The Vikings are coming to your house. This sets up for Thanksgiving. And look, I might go to this game, and if I go to this game, I don't want to see an L. I want to see a dub. I need Detroit to win that game, and I think you've already seen them. They've done it before. I mean, it was an ugly game, but they were able to get the win, and I think they can do it again.
1 week at a time. Go out there Sunday, whoop Cleveland's ass. This is a game where if this game is close, most people would be angered because this is a game that lines up to be a situation where when you look at the talent on both sides of the football field, the Detroit Lions need to go out there and drop a hammer on the Cleveland Browns. I mean, Cleveland is an organization so defunct that when they try to improve their team, that at the trade deadline, they don't file it correctly or some issues happen. Making a simple trade.
You couldn't get Jimmy Garoppolo. Come on, dude.
A simple
That'd
trade.
That'd be the best quarterback in Cleveland in, I don't know, since what, Vinny Testaverde?
To leave on a positive note, at least we're not Cleveland. So please, I don't want to come and record a podcast next week having Cleveland defeat the Detroit Lions.
Oh, my God.
Scorched earth.
If Cleveland gets their first win and it's against the Lions.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, Jesus.
All right, let's take our first time out. We'll come back and we'll discuss the week that was in college football, Michigan State. Very interesting things to talk about. And we'll finish the podcast picking in on the Pistons and Red Wings. Stay with us. You're listening to Doc and Jock on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Doc and Jock here for our host site, Podomatic.com. When Adam and I first started this project, we were looking for a place to host all of our recorded audio. And thank goodness we found Podomatic. At this point in time, we've recorded 600 to 700 weekly podcasts. We've grown from a basement podcast to a network that has daily audio content. How did we establish this network? By using a quality host site. Why do we use Podomatic? Great quality links, super easy to use. When we're done recording this podcast, we'll upload it to our host site, and within 5 minutes, we can generate quality links so that our supporters in the country and even overseas, they can listen to all of our recorded content. If you're looking to start a brand new podcast, Doc and Jock, Jason, Jerry Mallory, Vito, all the hosts on the platform will recommend one host site and one host site alone, Podomatic.com. because talk about delayed gratification. Oh my gosh. You sit down for a noon game, you're working and you're like, okay, it's going to be a 4-hour contest anyway because college football is so slow paced and they got to get their money with all the commercials. And then all of a sudden you see the weather in East Lansing and you're like, oh no, a 3.5 hour wait in between. Oh my goodness, a 3.5 hour delay. But at the end, I would take it.
This game was like masturbating and not being able to fire one off immediately. You sat there and you had to work at it. No. You actually had to put some muscle into it. And then 15, 20 minutes later, you finally got it to spit out.
What have we asked for as Michigan State supporters and fans? Just figure out what you are and play to your strengths. And it was so nice to see a contest where we obviously know Michigan State can run the football, but there are some times where a defense can target your running backs and they can, the defense can formulate a scheme that can stop you. So what did Michigan State do versus Penn State? They finally kind of let loose a little bit and let Lewerke just throw the ball all over the place. And there were so many great takeaways from the game. But the first thing is you got to give credit to Warner and Mark D'Antonio for putting together a game plan or maybe even changing their game plan. Whatever they did, when you watch that game, Michigan State versus Penn State, you started seeing the Michigan State offense be less conservative. They were throwing the ball all over the place. The wide receivers were able to shine. And something that you're seeing week to week is different people are stepping up week in, week out. Sometimes it's Cody White. Sometimes it's one of the running backs. Sometimes it's Lewerke. Sometimes it's Felton Davis. And you're seeing big plays take place on that offense. And if you had told me that Brian Lewerke was going to throw for 400 yards against Penn State, I would have told you, get the fuck out of here. But he did, and he was able to execute in a mud game. Remember, the conditions were not conducive for what Michigan State was trying to do, but they went out and they executed. And Brian Lewerke and that offense, all props to them for what they were able to do against Penn State to get that W. It was awesome.
Absolutely. You've seen some evolution of this Michigan State offense, something that we've been calling for all season long. I mean, we've been pounding our fists on the table saying Michigan State needs to come up with something different. They've got to be able to change this up. You can't just sit there, line up in the I formation, and expect to sit there and bludgeon people to death with your running backs. It just isn't going to work. So you've seen a little bit of play-action pass. They let Lewerke just actually go out there and just have fun and be a quarterback. He played a phenomenal game. On top of all of that, what's so different about this game compared to last week's game for Michigan State, that defense bowed up. That defense, they showed up, stuck their chest out, and said, you want it? Come get it. And they got into a street fight, and they won.
But they did give up 466 yards of total offense. But the big key with that defense, the takeaways. It was nice to force McSorley into some interceptions. They did give up yards. I mean, they didn't shut down Penn State, but they got the ball back when they needed to.
You held Saquon Barkley to 63 total yards, and you shut him out in the first half. I don't want to hear it. This is the same guy who, was it a week prior, ran all over Michigan in their vaunted defense, the one that everybody talks about. So I don't want to hear it. Yeah, McSorley got loose, and he threw a couple. You know what I'm saying? But in the end, it didn't even hurt you. It didn't matter. You did your job. You had to figure out which poison pill you wanted to take. Either you sit there, you take out Saquon Barkley and McSorley eats you up, or you take out McSorley and Barkley eats you up. You needed to figure it out. You took one out, and in the end, it worked out for you. It was an incredible game. It was outstanding.
Spartans only allowed Penn State to convert 4 of 12 on third down. Huge. More possessions.
Awesome.
Get off the field, and you're allowed to do some things with that offense. I mean, Felton Davis is emerging. I mean, wow, what a quality wide receiver. I mean, he had huge numbers. 12 catches, 181 yards, career highs, 33-yard touchdown. Dude is stepping up. And remember, guys, Michigan State's young. So this team is going to add pieces, and you would expect now that this Michigan State team going forward can learn from their past mistakes. They can continue to evolve, and there's some young talent. There's some hope here with this team. And you got Hunter Rison, Cody White, you got Brian Lewerke, who's now kind of going up the ladder in terms of respect nationally.
I was watching this game with my stepdad, and they sit there and they cut to Brian Lewerke, and they show some of his stats, and they do a close-up on him, and the announcers sit there and they start rambling on about something. I look at my stepdad, and I'm like, he's going to be special. He's going to be very, very, very good. Whatever you thought you had with Connor Cook, whatever you thought you had with Kirk Cousins, whatever you thought you had with Brian Hoyer, he's the next step in that evolution of Michigan State quarterbacks. He's that good. he's going to be outstanding. I'm saying it right now. Mark my words. He's going to be a nightmare for the Big Ten. This kid's going to be that good. I expect him in probably not next year, but I expect in 2 years, he'll go someplace either in the first or the second round. He's going to be that good. And you see it. It's like little things that he does. And it's just, you can tell he's got the leadership, and all the guys listen to him, and they pay attention to what he's saying when he's saying it. And it's just, if you go back to the very first game Michigan State played this season to now, just look at his growth and his development. It's outstanding. It's incredible. So now you figure you got what, 4 more games, because you're going to play either in a bowl game or you're going to play in the playoff, depending on how all this works out. You got 4 more games to sit there and add to all of that, on top of whatever the practice time is. And then next season, you know what you have as your quarterback. You know going in that he's going to be your starter. He's going to be so good next year. So good. And I dare say possibly a first round pick in 2 years.
And so we sit here today, the Michigan State Spartans control their destiny. And here we are again. The real rivalry for the Spartans is versus Ohio State. Because here we are. Because here we are again.
So much shit all the time, even when I praise you.
What are you talking about? We're not talking shit.
The real rivalry.
It is the real rivalry because year in, year out, who are the two teams that are vying each and every year for a spot to go to Indy? Michigan State and Ohio State.
Michigan State and Iowa.
But what a level of disrespect that I see going into this matchup. When you open up a gambling line and you see, okay, maybe you would give Ohio State maybe, a 5-point edge, and you say, okay, that's pretty fair between 5 and 7 points. 16 points, Ohio State is favored to defeat Michigan State. That is the level of disrespect in my mind. I would take the points all day. No doubt about it. I would take Michigan State plus 16. If I were to do a lock of the week, I would definitely say put your money on Michigan State and the points. I mean, Michigan State's defense, I don't see, allowing Ohio State to roll them all over the place. I think it's going to be a close game, and there's a strong chance. I would not be surprised sitting here next week with Michigan State even winning the game outright.
And factor in that the key to beat Ohio State, it's out there. Iowa dismantled Ohio State, totally kicked their ass all over the field last week. So there is a game plan out there to be able to beat Ohio State. On top of all of that, Michigan State's got a pretty good defense, like you said. And you factor in that you can turn JT Barrett over, and the moment you turn him over, that game's totally gone downhill for Ohio State. I know Ohio State's going to be pretty pissed off because they got their stuff pushed in last week. That being said, Michigan State knows exactly what's ahead of them. You factor in a 16-point differential for the game. Look, Michigan State's showing up, and I would take the points. I don't know if Michigan State's going to actually win this game outright, but I would bet good money over bad money that Michigan State, when it comes down to it, it's gonna be like a last-second kick. If they can make their field goal, they'll win.
So let's make our prediction. Does Michigan State walk into Ohio and handle their business?
I think they lose by 2 points. I think it's something like 24-26.
Okay.
It's just some kind of silly score where you're just like, how'd you end up with that? It'll just be something stupid that ends up happening. Michigan State will have to sit there with 5 seconds left, settle for a long field goal. It'll be like 45 yards, and it'll be windy. They'll just miss the upright.
Turnover differential will be huge. I feel like Michigan State is growing in confidence. Michigan State, as a football program, Mark D'Antonio definitely will use that line as a rallying cry. I truly believe Michigan State can win the game 27-20. I think they do control their destiny and make it to Indy this year to shock the world.
Ooh.
Make it to Indy, baby. Win out.
That's right. Hey, look, man, if they do, I'm right there with you, man. I hope so. They've played outstanding. They've been so much fun to watch. I mean, I know they sat there and they beat my Michigan Wolverines, and they deserve to win that game. They absolutely deserve to win that game.
It's not as inconceivable as many people would think. Mark D'Antonio has magic in November, and for some reason, that rivalry with Ohio State, Mark D'Antonio has won a few contests and some big contests. And so if they are able to execute their game plan, walk up to Columbus and handle their business, oh man, what an amazing feat. Because nobody, if you had said, do you think they can beat Penn State, Ohio State back-to-back, you'd be laughed out of any bar.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about it a couple weeks ago.
One and one.
You were like, no way, maybe 1-1.
1-1. All right, switching gears. Looking at the Michigan Wolverines, they were able to do some things versus Minnesota. But for me, I'm a little bit confused at the complaints of Michigan fans. I mean, look, if you find a strategy versus a football team and you're able to execute that game plan, and obviously Michigan ran the ball extremely well versus Minnesota. Higdon was able to do some things. They obviously didn't want Brandon Peters to do a whole heck of a lot. They said, okay, we're able to run the football, ram it down their throat, and they went and executed it, racked up huge yards in the offense, in the running game. Yet people are walking away from this game going, why didn't Peters throw more? Why didn't you take advantage of different situations? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Why don't you showcase Peters a little bit more? And I said, wow, this is the Big Ten. Sometimes when you have a football team that's capable of running it, why complain so much?
Yeah, I don't understand that either. Look, you figured out something that worked, and you exploited it. Now, going into this game, Minnesota had a very good rushing defense. Michigan was able to impose their will. You basically had two guys rack up damn near 200 yards, and you sat there and you scored some touchdowns with it. If you have the ability to do something much better than the other team, you keep doing it. This isn't like when you're playing Madden with your buddy, and your buddy's like, look, man, you got to stop sitting there doing that slant pattern that you keep scoring touchdowns on. If you stop doing that, there's no way you're going to sit there and you're going to be able to beat me. No, this isn't like that. You keep doing that slant pattern if that's what's working. In this case, for Michigan, they ran the ball. They ran the ball to death. They ran outstandingly.
Minnesota had no answer for it, so why not keep doing it? I mean, everybody wants to see Brandon Peters, and when he did throw the football, it was a little bit shaky. I mean, he missed some open receivers, and some of the balls were a little bit wobbly, but remember, guys, there was an hour rain delay. I mean, the weather wasn't exactly ideal, and obviously Harbaugh learned from the last monsoon that they played in. Dude, why risk yourself for turnovers? Why expose your young quarterback who you're trying to build his confidence? Just hand the ball off, get your 5 yards, and keep it moving, baby.
And you know what? I think he got popped early on in that game. That maybe rattled him a little bit, and then he took a really hard hit later on in that game. You could see his head hit the turf. So I think he was a little bit shaken up, and you got to remember, this is really and truly his first full game playing big-time football. And look, Minnesota's a good team. They're not great by any means, but they're a very good team. They went, took care of business, and that's all you're asking them to do. I mean, you had two guys who ran the football at damn near a 13-yard clip every time they touched the ball. Why would you let Peters even bother throwing the ball? It makes no sense. And look, I think what you do is you get Peters nice and comfortable. You let him work through a couple things. Yeah, you don't sit there and you don't have him throwing the ball all over the field because there's no need for it. You lean on your running game. This is the one thing that I think all Michigan fans wanted forever ago. You wanted a running game that was effective and efficient and able to sit there and cut up defenses and slice them to pieces. And you had that. You did that on Saturday. You sat there and you dominated them. You almost put up 400 yards on the ground with just two running backs. Do you realize that? That's insane.
So a name that I didn't think was going to pop up the rest of the 2017 season has resurfaced. So reporters had asked Jim Harbaugh after the game versus Minnesota, hey, what's going on with Wilton Speight? And he's like, well, he's actually healing very nicely. This is a guy that's a young cat, and people would be surprised at where he's at currently. And so people now are speculating, is Brandon Peters going to be the guy the rest of the year? Do you have confidence to throw him into a huge game versus Ohio State? Because that game is going to be magnified. Everybody's going to watch it. And now you got the guy, basically the comfort blanket right there, sitting maybe on the bench ready to return. One, is Brandon Peters the guy the rest of the way? And two, should Jim Harbaugh shut it down and be like, look, Spate's on the bench no matter what. If he's healthy, great. He'll be used as the backup. Is he handling it properly?
I don't think Harbaugh should nor will he shut it down completely because, like you said, Spate's his emergency blanket, right?
I think the fans will go apeshit if Wilton Speight ever comes back on the football field.
I think so
this
too,
year.
But if Brandon Peters struggles in a game against Maryland or, say, Wisconsin, because let's not forget, before you even get to Ohio State, you got to play Wisconsin, who right now, they're the bee's knees in the Big Ten. I mean, they're undefeated right now. And look, they haven't played anybody, but that being said, they're your odds-on favorite to sit there and win the Big Ten championship right now and possibly carry the torch for the Big Ten in the college football playoff. So look, there's a couple weeks to go before we get to Ohio State. I think you got to keep playing Peters.
Really?
I think if you get a nice lead on Maryland, you could maybe expect to see Wilton Speight if he's healthy, just to try to get some reps. But that being said, I'm not ready to turn the reins over to Wilton Speight. If I go back and I look at his first couple games when he was the quarterback, he didn't play very well. You know, I was totally underwhelmed. Brandon Peters comes in. There's a whole new juice to this team. They're flying all over the place. And yeah, sometimes he doesn't look, as proficient as you would like. But that being said, he's doing a good job. He's managing the game. He's not turning the ball over. This team's able to sit there and run the ball with him as the quarterback, which they weren't able to do at Wilton Spate. He makes timely throws when he has to. He's got a nice zip on the ball. I like what I'm seeing out of Brandon Peters. I don't think Harbaugh is going to shut it down. I think he probably should. I don't know. I don't want to say he should, because what happens if Peters does struggle against Wisconsin? You can go to Spate, pull him in if he's healthy enough to play, and next thing you know, he can get you a W, and that's going to be an important W.
Okay, before our final timeout, give me one thing that's impressed you about Michigan and one area of improvement that they got to take care of, that they got to tidy up going forward.
I think the easy answer is their defense is very impressive. All facets of that defense are very impressive. Going into this season, I was majorly concerned with that secondary, and they have shown time and time again that they are legit.
Nice.
And then I think I need to see more out of the quarterback position in the offensive line. I do like what I'm seeing out of Peters, and I think we're a little bit, I think everything's just kind of slightly retarded a little bit, because he wasn't able to get out there, and you're not able to see his growth. Like we're talking about Lewerke. You compare Lewerke's first game to now, he's grown exponentially. I think going into the season, Peters probably should have been your starter, and we could have seen that growth and that development, but we haven't. So now everything's kind of slowed down a little bit, and I need to see more out of Peters, and I need to see more out of that offensive line. It has gotten better over the last 2-3 games, and I do like what I'm seeing, but I need to see more.
After this break, we're going to talk about the Red Wings and the Pistons. We got to keep checking in with them. I know a lot of people don't discuss, and maybe the interest level isn't exactly where it needs to be, but there are some good things emerging with the Pistons and Red Wings. Don't always look to be critical of your teams. Also look at some bright sides. Pistons and Red Wings are doing some things Doc and Jock have noticed, and we'll talk about it next after this quick timeout. Thanks, everybody, for your continued support. The free and easy way to help keep the wind in the sails of this project, just visit our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. You can see what show airs when. You can handle all of your online shopping needs there. If you're prone to shop online, definitely at this point in time in the year, go click through that Amazon banner. Takes a quick second, and Amazon kicks us back a little bit when you make any online purchases. DetroitSportsPodcast.com, the hub of the operation. And hey, if you like what you're listening to, please do us a favor. Just tell one or two other people, and that's how we continue to grow this organically. Because I want to share a quick story with you. Covering Oakland basketball, after the last exhibition game, there was a bunch of students there. And, some of the reporters teach classes, and there were a bunch of students there, and they were asking good questions. So I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden someone popped up. A couple people were like, because I wore the Detroit Sports Podcast hat, and a couple people came up and said, I listen every week. You guys do a decent job. And there was me firing off questions. And so it was finally nice to get some recognition. Even though they were youngsters, they did recognize what we do. And it was very nice to hear. So if you see us around.
That's our demographic, bro.
That's right. If you see us around, feel free, come up, say hello. It was a nice feeling to have someone recognize what you do. Other times people are like, God, you guys suck. Turn off your microphones. But thank you for your support. It means a lot to us. Free and easy way, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Follow us via our social media platforms. It means a lot to us that we have a lot of support, and we can have a great old time during each and every contest, and that's what makes this project fun. Thank you for your continued support. We'll keep doing this as long as the fans support it. Thank you very much. Visit our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Cuz, are my eyes deceiving me? Is that the Pistons number 2 in the East, number 1 in the Central Division after 10 games in the season?
I know, it's crazy, isn't it? Absolutely nuts.
Shocking. And it's nice to see. I mean, they're doing some good things that are drawing positive attention to them. That offense looks good. They're playing well. They've defeated quality opponents. You got to give them props, because after a couple contests where they've been blown out, their effort was questioned, some people jumped off that bandwagon super quick. And that leash with them is super, super short. People are really waiting and seeing what this team is doing. But after 10 games, to be 7-3, you have to give them props for at least making it so that we talk about them in a different light.
Yeah, and you're spot on. And here's the thing. This team is playing extremely well right now. Yeah, some games that are a little bit up and down, but overall, they're playing outstanding. And I think you really have to look at where this good play is coming from and who's starting it. And I know it's easy to sit there and point out one guy and say he's the straw that stirs the drink, but I really do believe it's Andre Drummond right now. I mean, the guy is hitting almost 75% from the stripe. I mean, do you realize this is a guy who going into the year was hitting 35% from the charity stripe? I mean, that's unbelievable. It's a dramatic change. And just something as simple as that can really help a team because it shows a little bit of leadership. It shows his time and his approach to the game. On top of all of that, you don't have to remove him from the game, especially when he's one of your best defenders. I mean, this guy pulls down almost 15 rebounds a game, and he leads the team in steals. That's outstanding. And you not having to sit there and bench him, it totally helps his team out. On top of that, you're seeing an improved offensive game from him because he's standing closer to the basket when he's taking his shots. All of his shots now are coming from right around 3 feet or so from the rim, and his field goal percentage is going through the roof.
Okay, so there were reports about what's going on with this offense, okay, because obviously there's a difference. Scoring is up. I think last year they scored around 101 points, and this year they're up to about 104 points per contest. So in the papers, they've kind of looked at, okay, what's different about the Pistons offense? And you can see it on the court. The Pistons in years past would basically run pick and roll, and that's how they ran their offense. Now, there's a much more emphasis on motion. A lot of guys are getting involved touching the basketball. But when it was reported and people are like, okay, we see a difference in this offense, Stan Van Gundy was asked. He said, well, my brother, Jeff Van Gundy, and my associate head coach have kind of watched every single game and told me that we need to kind of shift this offense that we had last year. We need to stop relying on the pick and roll. We need to do things differently. We need to emphasize the strengths on this team and go away from the pick and roll and go to this motion offense. For me, when I read that, I say, okay, it's good that you were able to, as a head coach, to maybe put aside your own personal beliefs as to how to run the offense. But why did it take outside influences for Stan Van to change the offense? I mean, last year, in and of itself, that pick and roll offense, it was okay.
It didn't work. Don't say it was okay. It did not work last year.
So now they changed it, and it's a lot more productive, but it's a little bit concerning to me that it didn't come from the man himself. He kind of got advice from the outside.
Well, sometimes I think maybe you're too close to a situation to really be able to analyze it and effectively understand what's going on. Every now and then you got to go to somebody else and say, hey, can you take a look at this? Can you tell me what I'm doing wrong, or what do you see? And sometimes a different set of eyes really helps. You know, more to your point about them scoring more. In this last stretch of 6 games that they've played, they've gone 5-1, and they're scoring over 106 points a game. I don't remember a Pistons team ever doing that. I mean, even back when they were winning championships, I mean, that was a team that first to 80 wins. Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. They would hold you to like 79 points. If you got to 80, there was a good chance you were going to win that game over them. So this is a much more offensive team. I think you're right. The motion offense is helping. On top of that, you get a guy like Reggie Jackson back. As much as we don't necessarily like him, and I'm not a huge fan of his style of play, he's a key piece to this team right now. He's back in the lineup. He helps solidify things. You know, Andre's doing what he's doing, and I also think inserting Tobias Harris as a starter makes this team that much better. When we were sitting there previewing the Pistons, he was my guy. He was the one guy who I think was the best player on this team, and I think you're seeing it game in and game out. He leads this team in scoring. I think he's a leader, and he's doing all the little things that help you win games. And I think that's important for this team.
Very well said. And I think this can continue. I mean, I know that Stan Van is a pick and roll guy. He overly relies on it. It's his comfort zone. And sometimes when he doesn't see exactly what he needs to, because a motion offense is not exactly easy. You got to keep that ball moving. The ball can't get bogged down. You got to get a lot of people involved to get those open shots. And so for him, he's not sometimes comfortable overly relying on that because he wants to go back to what he's used to. But now what happens is when Tobias Harris makes shots, Andre Drummond makes shots, you got Reggie Jackson being involved.
Avery
Bradley. And the other aspect
I think
of it,
he's underrated in all of this.
That's another key, is that the defense is a little bit better.
Yep.
Offensive rebounding, defensive rebounding is improved. And with the Pistons, the big thing that you want to see is night in, night out, they're competing. They're not getting down. They're able to play a 48-minute contest. And in years past, when the team would get down, you kind of knew that they didn't have the offensive prowess to get back into a game. Now, you can be a little bit down at halftime. You can be okay. And in this upcoming stretch, you're going to play some teams that are not as good as you, and you should get some victories versus the Pacers and versus the Miami Heat. You should be able to kind of pad that a little bit and maybe keep that stretch up, maybe going 6-4, 7-3 in every 10-game stretch. I really don't believe that it's, a monumental feat to win 60% every 10 games, 6 out of 10 games.
I don't think it's monumental feat at all. Look, there's no reason that this team shouldn't be considered, or when we sit there and we look at everything as far as them challenging for a playoff spot, there's no reason we shouldn't consider them to be in the top 4. I think the Eric Bledsoe trade makes things a little bit more difficult for this Pistons team going forward.
Yep.
But that being said, look, Cleveland can't get it figured out right now. I mean, there might be a new head coach there, and his name might be LeBron James. Not really sure. I mean, Cleveland is struggling right now. Indiana, I don't necessarily believe in them. Right now, this team has a chance to really do something special. And I think as we look at it here and now on November 9th, there's no reason that this team should not be considered a top 4 team in the East.
And looking at the Red Wings, they're kind of piling up some points, winning some contests. I really was impressed with their victory, their shutout victory versus Edmonton. Vancouver, it was a gritty performance. Thomas Tatar scores late. They're picking up some points. I think they're one game above 500, around 8 wins, 7 losses.
That's right. And, you're seeing a little something here. And what I think it is, I think it's just a simplification of their style of play. They were able to sit there and put 4 goals in on Edmonton. They turned around the very next day, which, again, very difficult to sit there and turn around and get up and play another game. And against Vancouver, they sat there and they put 3. So 7 goals in 2 games. Outstanding. I think it's a simplification of the way they're playing. They're scoring on the power play. They're effectively killing the penalty, and they're getting shots on net. That's all it takes. Just get shots on net, and the rest of it kind of takes care of itself. And I think that's what you're seeing now. I expect this trend to continue. They're going to play Calgary tonight. I can see them getting a win against Calgary, and then they're going to end up coming home for the weekend, and they'll take on Columbus and then Calgary later on in the week. So I see a stretch here where they could pull out the next 3 games and really catapult themselves up in the Atlantic Division.
Anything of a concern to you? Anything that sticks out glaringly? Power play, special teams, goaltending, anything that sticks out to you currently?
Right now, the way they're playing, no, I think they look pretty solid. Injuries are always a concern. So, Nyquist got banged up the other night. Hopefully everything works out and he'll be okay. But otherwise, I think this team's playing really well right now. And I think it's something that, like you said, Stan Van Gundy made some, addressed his brother and some of his coaching staffs. They had a fresh pair of eyes looking at things. I think Jeff Blashill realized he had to take a step back and maybe gear their style of play down a little bit. And just a lot of times it's just keep it simple, stupid. And that's really what I think they're doing right now. So I expect to see a nice trend here. I think the goals are going to increase a little bbit. I think that power play will increase. And as long as they can keep doing a good job on that penalty kill, I think the wins are going to come. That being said, I don't know if this team will be, when it's all said and done, competing for a playoff position. But I think going in towards that final 2 weeks of the season, we'll be talking about them being on the cusp.
Okay, quick hitters before we get out of here. Very good podcast. Still this talk about LCA and attendance. Any concern?
No, because I think if these two teams continue to win games, I think the Pistons and the Red Wings will draw fans and will put them in their seats. Right now, it's brand new still. Look, I haven't been there. I know you've been there a couple times, but I've seen pictures, and I'm just like, man, I just want to go walk that corridor. And I just know I'm going to get lost for like an hour of the game. So it's one of those things where I got to show up early, go get lost, and then I need to go find my seat and try to watch some of the game.
JV won his World Series. Were you invested, not invested? A lot of debate in town in terms of how the fans reacted. Should they have reacted that way? Did JV earn that World Series because he had the game 6, in his possession? Didn't get the job done, though.
It's a team effort, right? He helped get you to the World Series, so he earned his ring. Yeah, I was happy for him, but I wasn't like, oh my God, I'm so pumped JV won. It wasn't anything like that. It was like, all right, cool, he won. We can put the story to rest, because I got tired of hearing about it, actually. I wanted Houston to win. If LA won, I'd have been fine with that too. I was kind of invested, but not really invested. Does that make sense? Like, my life wasn't going to change depending on which team won. So the fact that JV got the W, I was cool with it. I was happy for Houston. I like watching them. I like their style of play. I think that's outstanding.
Tragic news in baseball. Roy Halladay, esteemed pitcher, a guy that was well-respected, passes away in a tragic plane accident.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal. I was shocked when I heard that news. Really sad, man. I mean, I remember watching that guy just dominate games. he had it. And whatever it is, he had it. And then all of a sudden it was gone. And then next thing you know, he's out of baseball. And now he's dead.
So the ratings came out for Monday Night Football in the tanks. Worst Week 9 ratings in over a decade.
Well, it's your Lions. What do you want? And Lions, Green Bay. Look, you've got basically a JV quarterback out there for Green Bay, right? And then you've got the Detroit Lions, which I'm going to be honest with you, most people hate the Detroit Lions, or they feel sorry for us because it's Cleveland and then us, and then maybe Oakland. You know what I'm saying? Who might become Las Vegas. Who knows how that's going to work out? But it's kind of how it works. You know what I'm saying? It's like, all right, you got a bottom feeder team versus a guy who, hey, does he know how to throw a football? Okay, let's just try. You know, no, there was no juice for this game. None. And it's not like they talk trash to each other. It's whatever. Look, Matt Stafford's a really likable guy, right? If you can get around his neck beard, he's a really likable guy. Everybody wants to give the guy a hug and pinch his chubby cheeks. Aaron Rodgers out there, everybody wants to watch that game because that guy will sit there and he'll talk shit to you. If you're a lineman, he'll say, hey, come get me. I don't care. And next thing you know, he's got a broken collarbone.
Jameis Winston, eat a W. Was that the worst pregame hype thing that you've ever seen?
It was not good.
What's wrong with Jameis?
It was not good.
Eat a W.
Dude, he's going to be on the bench for a little bit. He's got an AC sprain, so, you know.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, I want to congratulate you on your fantasy team just rocking and rolling
That was
week.
awesome.
He had like 4 guys put up like 30 and 40 points.
And that was awesome. When I checked, I was like, damn, Jared Goff, finally. All right, last question. What was worse? Cam Newton making a Titanic reference or Jameis Winston eating a W on film, licking his fingers with his hand in a W gesture? What was worse? Cam Newton, the Titanic, man, come on. The Titanic sank. We got to keep on like the Titanic. We're like, yeah, I know you're very sad that they traded your boy away, Kelvin Benjamin, but the Titanic sank. And I don't know if you want to keep on like that, but I don't understand the reference. Did I miss something?
I think he's one of the violinists who's going to continue to play as the ship goes down. I don't know.
Leadership is hard, right?
It is hard. Look,
let's eat a W, baby. What's worse? Pick one.
Cam Newton, I don't even know, man. Like, I like that guy. I want to like that guy. But geez Louise, sometimes he opens his mouth and he inserts both feet. Like, I have no clue how you do that. And then Jameis Winston, I look, whenever Seafood's
Take
around,
the bench.
I'm always nervous because he might run away with your lobster tails.
Take the bench.
Can I say both are bad? Like they're both pretty awful, man. Maybe Cam Newton, because Cam Newton has no idea what he's talking about, and it's pretty obvious.
All right, thanks everybody for listening. Great podcast as always. DetroitSportsPodcast.com, daily audio content. Great podcast in Detroit. We appreciate everybody's support. Thank you for finding us on Twitter, Podomatic, Stitcher, anywhere you can find podcasts. You can find the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Go Lions.
After the last exhibition.
This was locker room talk.
Second dick. Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I hear voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me. They talk to me. They tell me things that I will do. They show me things